Wow.
What's up?
I just bought and financed a car through Carvana in minutes.
You? The person who agonized 4 weeks over whether to paint your walls eggshell or off-white bought and financed a car in minutes?
They made it easy. Transparent terms, customizable down and monthly. Didn't even have to do any paperwork.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Hey, have you checked out that spreadsheet I sent you for our dinner options?
Finance your car with Carvana and experience total control. Financing subject to credit approval.
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. You know when you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself? Talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
Hey y'all, welcome to Criminalist Behavior Podcast, the podcast that takes you deep into the heart of Louisiana's history and current, most chilling true crime stories. I'll be guiding you through the darkness of these crimes and all of those involved. Each week, we dig deep on those forgotten crimes or those crimes currently happening with the underlying legends that continue to haunt us. So lean in, listen, and get ready, because true crime is anything but ordinary. Stay with me as we unravel what happened in these mysteries. So today we're on season 2, episode number 4, and this is the Courtney Coco case. And y'all, this case is a doozy. So if this is your first time listening, hi, my name is S2E4, and I'm your host for Criminalist Behavior Podcast. I want to thank you for tuning into the show, and I hope you enjoy it. So right off the bat, trigger warning. This episode may contain content of a graphic nature, including descriptions of physical and sexual violence against adults, children, and animals. Listener discretion is advised. So I want to give you all a little news update. So the first batch of Criminalist Behavior Podcast's merchandise ends tonight at midnight. So if you haven't already got your gear, make sure you go check it out. It's under Bonfire, and you could just look up Criminalist Behavior Podcast, or you could go to our website at criminalistbehavior-louisianatruecrimepodcast.com, and to the right of my picture on the page, you'll see get your merchandise here. Click that button, and it'll bring you straight there. So now we're just going to get into the case, okay? So in August 2019, Woody Overton received a call from Stephanie Bellegarde, a mother whose daughter has been murdered 15 years earlier. Unbeknownst to them, this conversation would profoundly alter their lives. Courtney Coco, originally from Alexandria, Louisiana, was killed on October 4th of 2004. And her body was actually discovered in an abandoned warehouse in Winnie, Texas. Authorities suspected she had been strangled and wrapped in her own comforter, and the investigation quickly went cold. So Stephanie was left with only inconsistencies, cover-ups, and falsehoods to guide her. Over the years, she had compiled her own case file, which contained crucial information about the suspect. Law enforcement had made numerous promises to her over the years, but by that August, she had grown weary of waiting and disillusioned by unfulfilled commitments. They weren't following through with what they were saying, and it just seemed like there was nothing happening in her daughter's case. She was determined to seek justice for Courtney. So, in February 2019, Woody Overton launched a true crime podcast titled Real Life, Real Crime. and he shared stories from his extensive career in law enforcement. He narrated his experiences, detailing what he observed, smelled, and heard during all of his investigations. His engaging storytelling quickly attracted a diverse and dedicated audience who appreciated his old cop stories. When approached to investigate a nearly 2-decade-old case, aka Courtney Coco, the retired homicide detective felt compelled to assist the family that was in distress. So, Woody readily agreed to help Stephanie in her quest to solve Courtney's murder, with only one condition. That condition was he wished to share the story on his podcast. He instinctively recognized that his growing audience could play a vital role in the investigation. And y'all, that's exactly what it did. On September 6, 2019, Woody released the first episode of Who Murdered Courtney Coco? And in an instant, Stephanie and Courtney's family found themselves supported by a passionate community. The listeners of Real Life, Real Crime, affectionately known as the Lifers, they became deeply invested in this case, and there was an outrageous number of sharing over the injustices surrounding Courtney Coco's story. So Courtney Coco was a 19-year-old college student hailing from Rapides Parish, Louisiana. She was actually pursuing a career in criminal justice at Northwestern State University. And the last time her mother, Stephanie Bellegarde, saw her alive was on October 1st, 2004. Her mom did an interview with Dateline NBC, and
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. You know when you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself? Talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
she was just so heartbroken, and she recounted the following. It was the opening day of squirrel season, and we had plans to go camping for the weekend. Courtney was at my house, and I invited her to come join us on this squirrel hunt. And she politely declined that offer, and she was not particularly fond of the camp life. So Stephanie stated that she reflected on her daughter, saying the following. Courtney was always dedicated to improving herself and shaping her future. She had a zest for life. Her sisters and nephews feel her absence profoundly. And they were a very tight-knit family, and this has been incredibly challenging for all of them. But on Monday, October 4th, 2004, the partially clothed and decaying remains of 19-year-old Courtney Coco were discovered in an abandoned structure located at Farm to Market Road 1406, aka FM 1406, which was adjacent to Interstate 10 in Winnie, Texas. Now, Courtney was a resident of Alexandria, as previously stated, and she was last seen around 4:30 a.m. on Saturday, October 2nd, 2004. Despite various leads during the investigation, the case went cold. 15 years following the discovery of Courtney's body, law enforcement apprehended a suspect who had been engaged to Coco's sister in 2004. So let me stop right there right quick. In case you weren't following, her sister was engaged to this person that they deemed the suspect and who was arrested for the murder of Courtney. So this dude faced trial, and after a deliberation period of only 90 minutes, a jury from Rapides Parish reached an unanimous verdict of guilty for second-degree murder. The uncertainty surrounding the events that befell 19-year-old Courtney Megan Coco caused significant distress for her family and her acquaintances. Her mother, Stephanie, remained vocal about her daughter's case, engaging in advocacy for victims' rights and collaborating with the National Organization of Parents of Murdered Children. And she made the following statement. I know that there's a reason that I'm in this position, and I think it's to help others. I can't get justice for my daughter, but I'm trying, and I'm going to keep trying until my last dying breath. She also stated, but I can help other families to get justice for theirs, and that's what I'm going to do. She stated she is Courtney's voice, and she will always be Courtney's voice. So Skylar Hearn served as an investigator with Texas Rangers in 2004, and on October 4th of 2004, he received a request for assistance from the Chambers County Sheriff's Office regarding an unidentified body found in an abandoned structure. Now, Skylar testified that the body was found nude from the waist down, saved with socks, and positioned in a sexual-like position. She was on her back with her knees bent and legs spread wide open and arms extended to her sides. The body was located near the opening doorway of the building with her genitalia area facing the road. How fucking humiliating is that, y'all? Like, I can't imagine that if her mama probably felt ashamed for her. Like, that's no way that a person should be treated, just laid out there with her legs wide open, spread eagle to the freaking road. What? More or less, like, this is just disturbing. But with that being said, the body was located near the doorway, and it was in various stages of decomposition. There was evidence of post-mortem alteration to her nose and mouth. Now, Courtney was identified through her class ring, which on her class ring, like most, it bore her name on it. The dust on the floor remained undisturbed, indicating that a sexual assault likely did not take place within the building. However, that Detective Hearn documented nearby shoe and tire impressions, and the state presented several photographs illustrating Courtney's body and the crime scene along with Detective Hearn's testimony. Now, Hearn remarked that one of the photographs revealed a slight heel drag in the dust, suggesting that she had been placed in that position rather than being dragged there. Now, Detective Hearn communicated with the Alexandria Police Department, APD, and this followed the identification of Courtney Coco, during which she discovered that both her vehicle and her phone were unaccounted for. Now, Courtney was known to drive a Pontiac Bonneville sedan bearing the Louisiana license plate JUW468. Detective Cedric Green of the Alexandria Police Department conducted a search of Courtney's residence, and he informed Detective Hearn that her bedroom was just a total disarray. And her comforter was actually reported as being missing. Additionally, Detective Hearn learned that Courtney had recently inherited a substantial amount of money, and he noted the presence of an empty cash box in her home that appeared to have been forcibly opened. So that leads us to know that this crime is, one, it appears that it is sexually motivated, finding her body with her pants down and posed in a sexual position, and number two, money motivated, because she just was like in the place of inheriting so much money. So Detective Hearn was present at the autopsy of Courtney, and the autopsy was actually performed by Dr. Tommy Brown. According to information provided by the Alexandria Police Department, Detective Hearn discovered that Courtney has been last seen alive approximately 52 hours before her body was discovered. Now, Dr. Brown determined that Coco's remains had been moved from a different location where the temperature was actually elevated, as evident by the advanced state of decomposition. It estimated that it would have taken between 4 to 7 days for her body to decompose to such an advanced stage in the environment in which it was ultimately found. Now, Detective Hearn indicated that an investigation following the discovery that Courtney's vehicle was missing, along with her cell phone. And he sought to ascertain the temperature within a car's trunk, which, given that the temperature in Alexandria was approximately in the upper 80s, it would likely exceed 100 degrees inside the trunk. Now, Detective Hearn traced Courtney's phone to Houston, where a juvenile was actually in possession of it, and informed the authorities that he recently purchased it from an individual he referred to as Red. Additionally, Detective Hearn located Courtney's car in the same vicinity in Houston, where it was reportedly being rented out to exchange for narcotics. The individuals found with the vehicle claimed to have obtained it from this same suspect that the cell phone was obtained, Red. However, none of those in possession of Courtney's belongings were connected to her death, and the identity of this person named Red remained unknown. Detective Hearn provided testimony indicating that Coco's DNA was discovered in the trunk of her own car, and Fred Landry's DNA was located on the latch of the trunk. The Austin Police Department informed Detective Hearn about a suspect in the custody, and this suspect was named LeVay Duncan, but his investigation yielded no evidence linking Duncan to Courtney Coco's case. So this case and associated charges are fundamentally based on factual circumstances. And such, our examination of the factual evidence that was accepted and submitted to the jury, while extensive, detailed, and at times redundant in this opinion, was essential for a comprehensive and thorough evaluation of the intricate and interconnected tissues raised in this appeal. So we will now outline the evidence that was presented during the trial. Also, we're going to acknowledge at the beginning that the jury faced conflicting and contradictory testimonies, which required them to address multiple factual disagreements. The initial witness to provide testimony during the trial was Waylon Derrickson. At the time of the proceedings, Waylon resided in a homeless shelter in Missouri, from where he was arrested and subsequently transported to Louisiana in order to testify. Now, Derrickson stated that he had known the suspect for approximately 25 to 30 years. And in May of 2011, he engaged in a discussion with the suspect regarding the act of killing. Now, Derrickson expressed his belief that he could never take a life, to which the suspect replied, "It ain't as hard as you think." Now, the suspect then recounted an incident in which he claimed to have killed someone by smothering them and mentioned that he disposed of the body afterwards. Derrickson recalled that the suspect that was under, arrest, indicated he used a pillow, or something like that to smother the individual. Furthermore, Derrickson testified that the suspect stated he wrapped the body in a blanket and it believed it was actually discarded in Texas. So this is leading up to Courtney Coco, right? Because, Courtney's comforter was missing from her home, and, her body was found in Winnie, Texas, in an abandoned warehouse. But the suspect referenced a person named Coco and asserted that the blanket actually belonged to her as well. Derrickson speculated that Courtney was either the suspect's girlfriend or the sister of his girlfriend, because it was kind of confusing. And followed that conversation, Derrickson promptly reported the details to the police and provided a recorded statement. He noted that the suspect appeared anxious about the possibility of their mutual friend, Chris Clark, sharing information with law enforcement. So, Chris Clark was potentially a CI, aka criminal informant, right? But during cross-examination, Derrickson acknowledged that he had multiple convictions for theft. He was unable to specify the color of the blanket or its owner, although he speculated that it might have belonged to Courtney. Now, the defense counsel probed Durson regarding his earlier statement to the police, in which he claimed that the suspect and Lace Evans, Coco's sister, had murdered Courtney to obtain insurance funds. In a previous account, Durson mentioned that Courtney was wrapped in his blanket, yet during his testimony, he referred to the blanket as hers. So there was, mix up in the stories he was saying. He couldn't get his shit together. Durson informed the police that Evans had a role in Courtney's murder. He refuted the notion that his history of drug use had any impact on his memory. On redirect examination, Durson clarified that the suspect never stated that Evans had killed Courtney, but rather indicated that Evans was involved in matters related to the money aspect. Durson asserted that he had no motive to fabricate his testimony, and Detective Hearn followed up with a cross-examination, and he said that he was not aware of the developments of Alexandria Police Department's investigation following October 2005. Throughout his investigation, he discovered that this person named Red was with an unnamed cousin when they disposed of Courtney's car and phone in Houston. Detective Hearn acknowledged that if Courtney's car had been utilized to transport her body and then was subsequently abandoned in Houston, then the perpetrator would require another vehicle to return to whatever destination they were going to after. The defense counsel inquired whether Landry could be regarded as a suspect due to his DNA being present on the trunk latch. Detective Hearn responded that it would be necessary to ascertain when and how Landry's DNA came to be on that trunk latch. And the DNA that was discovered under Courtney Coco's fingernails was her own DNA. So when the defense counsel asked Detective Hearn if his testimony indicated that the defendant was responsible for Courtney's death, he replied negatively. Now, a doctor of osteopathic medicine, Dr. Tommy Brown, was recognized as an authority in forensic pathology. And he achieved board certification in anatomic and clinical pathology in 1976, followed by nuclear medicine in 1979 and forensics pathology in 1990. Throughout his career, Dr. Brown had performed over 15,000 autopsies, y'all. And it had been acknowledged that he was an expert in the forensic pathology field on more than 100 different occasions. And on October 5th, 2004, Dr. Brown conducted the autopsy on Courtney Coco. And he reported that the body was in a state of severe decomposition, accompanied by a significant odor. When the state inquired whether an individual who handled a decomposing body would carry the same odor, Dr. Brown concurred. He emphasized that the necessity of having background information prior to forming a conclusive opinion. Dr. Brown noted that Courtney was last seen on October 2nd, 2004 at 4:30 a.m., and a timeline did not align with the advanced decomposition that was observed. He testified that Courtney must have been subjected to high temperatures during that time, which would have expedited the decomposition process. Dr. Brown also acknowledged that being confined in the trunk of a vehicle could actually contribute to that accelerated decomposition. Dr. Brown conducted an external examination of Courtney, which showed no indicators of trauma. The contents of Courtney's stomach included French fries and chewing gum, and there was evidence of alcohol in her system as well. And Dr. Brown determined that the cause of death was a homicide by unspecified means, attributing this conclusion to the body's significant decomposition, which hindered the identification of anatomical details. He testified that the most probable cause of death was asphyxia resulting from smothering, given the absence of bodily trauma, the lack of any diseases, and the analysis of the toxicology report. His autopsy report was submitted as evidence and outlined his findings as follows. Cause of death: homicide by undetermined means in a severely decomposed body. Manner of death: homicide. And the comment that was left on this finding was all procedures were performed by the prosecutor, including the collection of decomposition fluid and spleen for toxicology. A rape kit was performed, fingernail scrapings, clippings and swabs, pulled head hair, pulled and combed pubic hair, and the removal of clothing and recovery of hair from the clothing and the body. The body was in a severe state of decomposition, which obscured the anatomic findings, and the circumstances of the case are indicative of a homicide. The mechanisms would most likely be due to asphyxia due to smothering, and the toxicology results revealed that ethanol content contributed most likely from the severity of the decompositional state. Dr. Brown was then questioned regarding the toxicology results. And I'm going to go with the question and answers here so y'all could really understand how he was questioned on the stand. So the question presented to him was, so the last sentence there, toxicology results revealed an ethanol content contributed most likely from the severity of the decompositional state. What on earth does that mean? Now, Dr. Brown followed up with his answer, and this is what he said. The autopsy findings on NMS2, our toxicology with NMS, shows that a toxicology analysis was done. 2016 sick and sent to NMS. And their results showed that the ethanol or the alcohol level was 0.178 grams per 100 milliliters, and that is about half of what the original. You see how he's talking? Why is he talking like this? Because it's annoying me. Me trying to read this to you is disturbing. But let me finish what he said. So he said that it was 0.178 grams per 100 milliliters, and that is about half of what the original autopsy findings at Ameritox was. It also showed that she had ingested some tramadol, which is a synthetic opioid that is used for pain and is also an opium derivative, and 1,100 nanograms per milliliter. Nanograms is billionths of a milliliter. So then they followed up with this question. So explain that to me. How is it we have a NMS labs report which finds the blood alcohol concentration of 0.178 and the spleen has 0.32? How does that actually happen? So Dr. Brown followed up with his answer, and he said the interval of time for one reason, but also the spleen. There's no studies that I know of that you take blood in the spleen and you can quantitate the amount of blood from the spleen and put it into your milieu or the findings that you're going to make your decision for an autopsy. In my opinion, she probably was drinking at the time, but that would not account for her being totally or could have died from alcohol intoxication. And he also followed up with, there's a number of things that might interfere with the results. Number one is post-mortem. Number two is there's a peripheral distribution of the alcohol and the drugs within the system. After death, it goes to different parts of the organs. And the spleen is a peripheral organ, so it's going to show an elevated level also. However, there's no studies in forensics and toxicology that does not use the spleen as a quantitative reason to determine that the person has died from alcohol intoxication. It's not acceptable as a quantitative means. Qualitative, you can say there's alcohol there, and I could try to divide it up by saying that she probably did imbibe with alcohol, but it was not near where they're referring to as the 0.32. So, in case you're like, English, please, because that shit was like, what? Confusing. Blood alcohol concentration levels of up to 0.16 may be linked to the process of the body's decomposition. However, Dr. Brown emphasized that the spleen is not a reliable indicator for assessing the blood alcohol concentration. He expressed that his belief that Courtney did not succumb to her demise to alcohol poisoning or a drug overdose. The presence of chewing gum played a crucial role in concluding that Courtney was asphyxiated, as it indicated to Dr. Brown that she was likely chewing the gum at the time of her being smothered, which led to her inadvertently swallowing it. Now, Dr. Harry Bunnell and Adele Shaker arrived at conclusions that was also consistent with those of Dr. Brown. During cross-examination, Dr. Brown stated that there were no signs of lacerations around Courtney's neck, nor were there any fractures present in the carotid or hyoid bones that would imply strangulation. His assertion that Courtney suffered from asphyxiation was derived from the diagnosis of exclusion only, and this was informed by his education and his experience professionally. Dr. Brown also mentioned his intention to determine the substances that was present in her system, which led him to extract blood from her spleen solely for qualitative analysis. The toxicology report from 2015 revealed the presence of tramadol in Courtney's system. However, Dr. Brown believed that the quantity of the amount of tramadol found in her system detected that it was insufficient to suggest any type of overdose from occurring. And he also followed up with this in a statement while he was on the stand. And he said, not in my opinion, no, the one study shows 5 deaths due to tramadol. The mean was 0.6100. She only had 1,100, so the deaths that were reported due to tramadol were 5,000 nanograms per milliliter, higher than what she actually had in her system. So the therapeutic level for tramadol was listed up to 800 nanograms. So Courtney was a little bit over the therapeutic level, according to Dr. Brown. Now, Fred Landry was summoned by the state to provide his testimony. During his statement, Landry disclosed that he had engaged in a sexual relationship with Courtney while she was involved with her boyfriend known as Jitty. So, now you do realize that he was engaged to her sister. So this is just all screwed up. A freaking love triangle, quadruple, whatever you want to call it. A quadruple, I don't know. Anyways, he asserted that he had no connection to her death, and under cross-examination, he acknowledged that his DNA had been discovered on the trunk latch of Courtney's vehicle. Detective Cedric Green, who has been involved in the case from the very beginning, also provided his testimony. He recounted his search for Courtney's residence and his conversations with Jackie Hampton, Lonnie Melbert, and Louis Jones, the last individuals that were confirmed to have seen Courtney alive last. And they were not ruled out as suspects. Detective Green stated that there was no evidence that implicated them in Courtney's death as well. Evidence collected from the residence indicated that Courtney, along with Hampton, Melbert, and Jones, had been playing dominoes and using marijuana. Detective Green further discovered that on the evening of October 1st, 2004, prior to Courtney's disappearance, images of Courtney in clothing she was wearing was later found at her home. An additional investigation revealed that Courtney had been diagnosed with a STD in Rapides Parish Health Unit shortly before she disappeared. A letter that was addressed to Courtney from a nurse at the health unit dated September 23, 2004, emphasized the necessity for her sexual partner to receive the same treatment as well. The name Jitty was handwritten on the letter, indicating his role as Courtney's sexual partner. During cross-examination, the defense attorney inquired of Detective Green regarding other individuals of interest related to this case. So they were trying to see that it wasn't just Fred Landry that should be questioned in this case. He provided testimony indicating that Levy Duncan visited Courtney's residence and he was accompanied by Melbert. Furthermore, on October 2nd, 2004, Courtney returned home with Hampton and Jones following a dominoes game. Detective Green noted that prior to her disappearance, Courtney had been involved with several individuals, including Hampton's brother, Floyd Williams, who he is actually referred to as the person they call him Jitty. So, additionally, Courtney's sister, Evans, emerged as another person of interest in the investigation for that insurance money. Detective Green remarked that Evans was uncooperative and reluctant to engage with law enforcement. Courtney was also romantically linked to Ernest Veal, known as Prince, who subsequently became a person of interest as well. Detective Green testified that Courtney's residence had been subjected to burglary on at least 2 occasions prior to her death, with law enforcement unable to identify the person responsible for that. And upon turning 18, Courtney began to receive her inheritance funds, including a lump sum payment of $20,000 that started in June of 2004, which was depleted from her bank account the following month in July. Now, Officer William Bates, who served as a crime scene officer with the Alexandria Police Department for 19 years prior to his retirement, also provided testimony. He stated that he conducted a search of Courtney's residence and captured photographs in October of 2004 following the discovery of her body in Texas. Officer Bates reported that all entrances to there were no indications of forced entry, suggesting that the assailant either entered through an unlocked door or Courtney allowed him inside. He observed that a garbage can had been overturned in the kitchen and that Courtney's mattress had been moved. The lockbox located under her bed was found to be empty, and apparently a box of cigarettes was found in it. Now, Officer Bates further testified that the last recorded use of Courtney's phone was in Alexandria, and that occurred at 4:30 a.m. on October 2nd, 2004, and her final phone call was made to the residence belonging to LaTanya Anderson, who was William's girlfriend. So, Janet Vaillant resided in Winnie, Texas, and served as a civilian employee at the CCSO in 2004. During her testimony, Vaillant indicated that she was friends with the identifying witness, Jude Wilson, and they apparently graduated together in 1981. She described Wilson as possessing a photographic memory and being an artist. Now, Vaillant noted that Texas Rice Festival was taking place annually on the first weekend of October. And in September of 2022, investigators reached out to her to inquire if she recalled an incident that occurred on FM 1406 in 2004. Initially, Janet didn't have any recollection of any such event taking place. However, she later remembered that on October 3rd, 2004, which was a Sunday, and coincided with the Goat and Lamb show at the Rice Festival, in which she was the chairman of. The show commenced at 5 p.m. and concluded around 9 p.m. Now, upon Janet returning home, she actually passed the abandoned building where Courtney's body was eventually discovered. She was following Wilson in her truck when another vehicle unexpectedly entered the space between them. So, hurried up and rushed out in between both of their vehicles. So, Janet testified that Wilson reported the incident to the CCSO approximately 4 days later. So, here we go with the questions and answers on that cross-examination. So, question. Alright, Ms. Vaillant, at the time that he came to the sheriff's office, had Courtney Coco's body been discovered in that building? And Janet responded, no, sir. This was the day before I think the body was found, so we knew nothing about a body. But when he came in 4 days later, the body had been found, and he felt like that information would be very important. Next question was, that's what I mean. Let me be clear about the question I'm asking. She responded, okay. And he asked this question. At the time that you see this almost wreck with a person you later found out to be Mr. Wilson, when you see that wreck, you had no clue there was a body in that building? And she responded, not at all. No, sir. He followed up with the question, Mr. Wilson comes to the sheriff's office after the body is found? And she said, correct. Vaillant could only recall that other vehicle was of a dark color. She stated in her testimony that she was unaware of a body being located at the deserted structure due to her employment with the CCSO. However, she had not considered a specific day on which the body was found. So then he questioned the following. So is there any doubt in your mind that what you observed near this wreck between Mr. Wilson and this car was on that very weekend? And she responded, no doubt. So then the question was asked, was it a Friday night, Saturday night, or Sunday night? She said it was Sunday because I went to work the next morning, which would be Monday. Bayon says she tried to write down the car's license plate number, but she lost a piece of paper and could not remember the license plate number at the time of trial. So during cross-examination, Bayon indicated that the Rice Festival typically commences on a Wednesday and concludes on a Sunday. However, in 2004, the festival actually extended beyond its usual duration, as they featured a barbecue cook-off the weekend prior. This cook-off occurred on Friday and Saturday, and although some teams reported on Sunday, the defense counsel presented the 2004 Rice Festival program as evidence, which specified the festival dates as September 24th to October 3rd, 2004. Now, Bayon could not remember if Wilson was engaged to create the brochures or programs for that year. And in August 2022, Trooper Younger reached out to Bayon, who was at the time expressed a lack of memory regarding the near collision involving Wilson and that unidentified vehicle. So Bayon noted that Trooper Younger referenced the Courtney Coco case, which she initially believed was unrelated to the incident in question. Trooper Younger informed Bayon of the police's perspective that she was a witness to the events on October 3rd, 2004. While Bayon could not confirm if Trooper Younger mentioned Wilson's name, she stated that she did not have any type of communication with Wilson following her discussion with Trooper Younger. Now, Bayon recalled that immediately after her phone call with Trooper Younger, the details of the incident actually came back to her. When Trooper Younger contacted her again in September, a month prior to the trial, this is whenever she provided a comprehensive statement. So they're pretty much trying to put this vehicle at the crime scene. So Bayon provided testimony indicating that individuals interviewed at the CCSO typically compose their statements in their own handwriting, after which the police transcribed these statements for the witnesses to sign. She clarified that certain investigators would listen intently while taking notes during the interview and subsequently draft the witness's statement based on their notes prior to re-questioning the witness' signature. So Bayon was confident that the incident took place on October 3rd, 2004, as she would have not have been in a truck and trailer on any other day during the Rice Festival. So, Jude Wilson, who has resided in Winnie, Texas for the majority of his life, frequently traveled along FM 1406, and the stated part about his memory on the evening when the near accident occurred. So, they questioned him, and the following question was asked. So, tell me the kind of circumstances. When was this? What time of day? And he responded to, it was night, and I don't remember what the day was exactly or anything like that. I'm terrible with dates and stuff like that, but I do remember that my wife had asked me to pick her up some cigarettes. I went across the street to Texaco, and which I knew they closed about 10 o'clock, so I got there and then I took off and then headed back home. And he stated that as he was coming over the overpass, he noticed there was a car there, and then the attorney interrupted him and said, "Car where?" And then Jude responded, "At this house. There was an abandoned house." So Wilson provided testimony indicating that while he was traveling over the overpass, he did observe an individual walking in front of the headlights of a vehicle parked approximately 10 to 12 feet from that abandoned building in question. Now, he stated that the individual that he saw entered the vehicle and began to reverse out of the driveway. He also stated that he had to maneuver his vehicle to avoid a collision with a car because this dude was just backing out his driveway like a bat out of hell. So he was going about 55 to 60 miles an hour. He noted that he glimpsed a portion of the vehicle's license plate, identifying it as a Louisiana plate featuring the letters J and W, along with the number 8, but he couldn't remember the entire thing. He recalled the letters distinctively as they corresponded to his initials. He further testified that the driver of the vehicle accelerated and merged onto I-10 headed towards the Houston direction. So when requested to provide a description of the person he saw in the driver's seat, he stated that the person seemed young, possessed very short hair, and lacked facial hair. He testified that the individual exhibited characteristics typical of a white or Caucasian person, including regular lips and a standard nose. Wilson did not view the person's face directly, but he only saw what would appear to be like a facial profile. Additionally, he created a map on the Rice Festival brochure and distributed the brochures. So the next question was asked, so in relation to the Rice Festival, when is this almost right that we're talking about? And he responded, I couldn't tell you right offhand because there was so many things going on. Everything was just like a blur. So they followed up with the statement, when you say so many things going on, you mean so many things going on at the Rice Festival? And he said, yeah, at the Rice Festival. I was up and down the road all the time. So then the question was asked, so generally, when is the Rice Festival? And Jude responded, it used to be the first week of October. So Wilson delayed reporting the near accident until October 8th after learning that a body had been discovered. He informed the police at the CCSO that he could not recall the specific day of the incident as he had been occupied distributing the brochures to receive payments for his efforts. So he offered details concerning the individual's description and the partial license plate with a VW and the number 8. And following his conversation with the police, he was given a prepared statement to sign. Wilson's written account at the CCSO. And this is what that statement read. I'm going to read it as follows, okay? My name is Jude Wilson. I travel FM 1406 several times a day. There is an abandoned house on FM 1406, which the body was found. I was traveling down FM 1406, I believe it was Monday, September 27, 2004. I had gone to Power Fuel and I was on my way back to the house. I believe it in there before they closed. I was coming over the overpass at Interstate 10 and I noticed a car backing out of this abandoned house. I really paid attention to the car because it did not appear they were going to stop and I thought they might back out in front of me. They stopped almost at the road. I noticed the car was dark in color and it had Louisiana plates. I recall part of the license plates as being JW because those are my initials and it stood out to me. It appeared to be an older model car because I noticed the taillights to be boxier than that of a modern style car. It was dark inside the vehicle, so I could not see inside the vehicle. I did in the mirror, however, after I passed, and the vehicle was traveling south on FM 1406 over the bridge and headed back towards the Winnie area. The only other car that I have ever seen at this abandoned house was a white four-door car, which was approximately 1 month ago. And this car also had Louisiana plates on it. When I saw the news last night on October 7, 2004 with a description of the vehicle, there was no doubt in my mind that this is the vehicle that I saw backing out of the driveway of this abandoned house. So, Wilson was not approached regarding Courtney's case until a few years before the trial, when Detective Dryden from Alexandria Police Department reached out to him. And this was roughly 15 years after this whole ordeal and that near accident happening. And based on his recollection, Wilson created a silhouette of the individual for Detective Dryden because he couldn't see the facial expressions because, the car was dark. And when Detective Dryden contacted Wilson to inquire if he would be open to reviewing a photographic lineup, he said that he was initially kind of skeptical, but ultimately consented. Now, during the photographic lineup and at trial, Wilson identified the defendant, a white male, as an individual who has been driving the vehicle that damn near plowed into him. During cross-examination, the defense attorney inquired to Wilson why he had failed to mention observing the number 8 in the license plate during any of his previous statements to law enforcement. Wilson responded that he informed the CCSO, but noted that this detail apparently did not make it into the statement. Additionally, the statement did not include Wilson's assertion that he had seen an individual walking and entering the vehicle, a detail he claimed to communicate to the police. Wilson conceded that he had signed an affidavit affirming the truth and accuracy of the statement. However, he admitted that he had not reviewed the statement prior to signing it. So, that is wrong. First off, especially if it's a legal binding document, you want to review what the hell's on that statement. You want to make sure nothing else was added on there or nothing was left out, like in this case. But he further testified that he had never read his statement from 2004 And when discussing his interactions with Detective Dryden in 2020, the defense counsel questioned Wilson about his reservations regarding a photographic lineup. And this is the following exchange that took place. He answered the following: because it's almost 20 years later and I've never done a lineup before. As I said, I did a drawing for them and sent it to him, and that's when he asked me to be able to pick this person out of a potential lineup. And I didn't know whether, because if I had I've been able to recognize his features, I certainly wouldn't have been able to participate in this lineup. So then the question was brought up, but did you not tell Detective Dryden I didn't see his full face? Did you not tell him that? And then Jude responded, I'm sorry, can you repeat that? So then they rephrased the question. Did you not tell him you did not see his full face? And then Jude responded, correct. So the next question I asked was, wouldn't that be why you'd be skeptical to pick someone out of a lineup? And he responded, no, because if I could see a side profile of somebody and they had a side profile, then that would be acceptable as well. So then the next question was, did they show you a side profile? They showed you a frontal picture of 6 individuals, right? And then Jude responded, yeah, that's correct. So then they said, so if you didn't see his full face, how could you pick him out of a lineup? And Jude responded, because I can use my mind. And I turned him, interrupted. They didn't, sideways, and interrupted? Oh. So then the question was, the silhouette with regular lips and a nose, correct? So Jude responded, yes. So then they also questioned regular lips and nose that could be justified on anybody. Am I correct? And then he said, yes, sir. So Wilson informed Detective Dryden that he recalled the car's license plate, including his initials, the JGW, and yet he did not reference the number 8 in this first account. So they were focused on that, right? So the defense counsel inquired if Wilson's regarding the date of the near collision was accurate. Wilson informed Detective Dryden that it took place during the week of the Rice Festival, and the defense counsel questioned why Wilson would have been distributing brochures on the final day of the festival, which then Wilson responded that he believed they had exhausted their supply of brochures. He further testified that he typically distributed brochures on a Monday or Tuesday preceding the start of the festival, so before the festival started. So now the shit has changed. So why would you be giving out brochures about the festival on the last day the festival's taking place? But then he said, well, no, it was the last day before the festival took place. So they're trying to mix him up on his memory and see if they can catch him telling lies. So the festival customarily commenced on a Friday, continued through the following week, and concluded on that Sunday. So in 2004, the festival actually occurred September 24th to October 3rd. Courtney's body was found on the 4th. So that would be if he's saying that he was distributing those brochures on the last day of the festival, which would be October 3rd, and Courtney's body was found on the 4th, then it's just not making sense. So then the question was asked, to be clear, you told Detective Dryden that on a Monday or Tuesday before the festival began, which was in September, that this incident actually happened to you. So the car almost backing into you, am I correct? He said, well, that I didn't give any dates. I thought that might have been the time, but I'm really not sure as to what time that was. So then they followed up with the question, we get that, but you said it was before the festival, right? So Jude said, yeah? So then the question was like, did you not see this piece of evidence that said the festival was between the dates of September 24th and October 3rd? Is that correct? And Jude said, yeah. So upon redirection and examination, he acknowledged that his difficulty in recalling the specific dates, and he restated that he relied on the CCSO to accurately compile his statement from the information he provided then. So he felt that they did not fulfill this responsibility. Wilson expressed his belief that Caucasians typically have narrow noses, and while individuals of African American, Native American, and Vietnamese descent tend to have a wider, flatter nose. So this is why he concluded that the suspect would be white. So Clyde Griffin provided testimony during the trial stating that he encountered Coco at the club on the Friday preceding discovery of her body. So, subsequently, Saturday afternoon, he observed a man operating Courtney's green Pontiac Bonneville in Alexandria. Although Griffin recognized the man from a previous encounter, he was unaware of his name. Ultimately, Griffin identified Veal as the individual that was driving Courtney's vehicle in a photographic lineup. So, Michelle Paul was Courtney's aunt, and she testified that the family was permitted to enter Courtney's residence approximately 18 days after the police had released it following the discovery of her body. And they said during this visit, Paul observed that Courtney's comforter was missing from her bed and discovered a small number of mechanic rags, estimated to be between 6 and 10. Now, why would Courtney have about 6 to 10 mechanic rags in her dryer? So Paul expressed the concern regarding the unusual nature that Courtney would be washing only just 6 to 10 rags, and particularly since they emitted a strong odor of bleach. She could not ascertain any reason for Courtney to possess mechanic shop rags. So Dr. Charles Dezel was recognized as an authority in the field of mathematics. He conducted a mathematical experiment aiming at assessing the likelihood of a test subject accurately guessing specific independent variables. So he provided testimony indicating that the chance of the test subject correctly identifying 2 out of 3 letters on a license plate, as well as recognizing it as a Louisiana plate, was below 1%. So this probably would decrease further if the test subject was successfully identified as the perpetrator in a lineup. During cross-examination, Dr. Dezel stated that his probability experiment would render cross-examination, and he stated that it would be rendered invalid if the test subject had prior knowledge of the license plate details, as his experiment assumes the test subject does not know the license plate. So, now, I'm going to stop it right here, because we're already at 54 minutes, and we still got a lot to go, y'all. I'm about to cover the rest of this case, and the rest of this case is involving, like, her relationship to this person, and how he was engaged to her sister, Lacey Evans, and y'all, a whole bunch of shit's about to go down. So, I want to thank y'all for tuning into the show. Again, today is the last day for the first batch of Criminalist Behavior podcast merchandise. If you have not already, then go check out our website, see that merch, and then pick you something out. And if not, that's fine too. But I really want to thank y'all for listening and supporting the show. And if you enjoyed our show, please rate and review us on iTunes, Apple, anywhere you listen to your podcasts. And those reviews and likes and subscribes really help the show out. So please subscribe, like, follow, tell your mom and them, y'all. And also, don't forget, there is 2 Patreon episodes out, and I will be releasing another one, as Patreon episodes are released every Sunday. But we got the Black Widow, Betty Lou Beats, and how they had this one episode from London, England, and this woman literally hid a baby in a dresser drawer under her bed until this baby was 3 years old. Y'all check out them Patreon cases. Don't be sleep on them. Remember, we have 2 paid Patreon groups. And we have, the first one is free, and that's what you're mostly listening to on now, and that is the Kuyans. So then we got the Lagniappers, and finally, our highest tier is the Go-Getters. Now, you get to receive all of the Patreon episodes with either one, either the Lagniappers or the Go-Getters, but you get additional perks. So check out that website, and that's Criminalist Behavior Louisiana True Crime Podcast.com. Again, tell your mama to thank y'all for tuning into the show, and I'm going to try to sneak in another episode later this week, and yeah, so might be bonus content, second part of this case, but yeah, stay tuned, and thank y'all. Y'all have a wonderful day, and until next time, this is your host, Sarah Soudier, and I'm out.